Assalamu alaikum, this is Amin from the Heist podcast, and in this episode, Akhi Tweet, Mohamed, he basically did a DNA test, so we look into his ancestry, and there are a few surprises in there actually, and we just talk about that whole topic. Then towards the end, we go into just the history of humankind, and did we come from cavemen? Did we come from monkeys? Did we come from people who couldn't even speak and didn't have any technology? Or how did it go? So I think it's a really interesting one. And you might even have some ideas about where your ancestors might have come from just by listening. So check it out. Enjoy.
Rid of all the noisy stuff that I've got all around me.
Don't be scared, bro. Don't be scared. Okay.
Don't be scared.
Bro, it might be episode 190, you know.
190 reasons why to listen to Mind Heist.
Absolutely,
one. What's reason
I'm back
one?
with the green on green. That's the traditional.
Yeah. I feel like this is the traditional setup. I've got no distracting lights in the back.
Oh, that's true. What happened? Okay.
Well, it was making me really blurry. It was too dark, and it was messing up the focus. And
okay,
yeah, it's just not
I've got a bit of karak. Here, wait, here.
Oh,
karak.
very nice.
I made it myself. I mean, it's very easy to make. I know, like the Pakistanis are going to kill me for this. I think they are, but I think that's kind of the way you make it. But I don't know. Basically, just water, tea, obviously black tea, and then a couple cardamom cloves, a couple, they called cloves? Anyway, cardamom things. Pods, that's it, pods. And cloves, you know, the black, what's it called? Is it Qaranful? Yeah, Qaranful, yeah. A couple of those. What else? If I have, you know, cinnamon stick, throw that in there.
Condensed milk.
Sugar. And then milk, yeah.
Do you use condensed milk or evaporated milk or one of those milk?
If I had that, I would, but I don't have that.
Yeah. My boy put me onto his recipe, and my wife's been making it at home as well. Alhamdulillah, it's really nice. But with the condensed milk, it's just too much sugar, so you can't have it all the time.
That is true. Actually, this is much less sweet than I usually would have it, and it's all right, you know, it's good. Oh, yeah, ginger. When I made it a month or two ago, I had fresh ginger, so I threw that in as well. That's nice. That's nice. But today I don't have that. I put powdered ginger. I don't know. It's all right. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Well, should we get into it? Let's get into it.
Okay. Are you talking about the DNA discussion?
Oh yeah, bro. I've just been all week. I've been drowning.
You're proper into this, bro.
Bro, it's fascinating stuff.
Okay, let's discover.
So I just to rewind. I spat in a test tube like 20 days ago, and I sent it off to the lab, and my results came through. Yeah, my results came through, and it was really, really interesting stuff. And then it just took me on an absolute joyride into all sorts of interesting things about this kind of stuff. But first of all, let me share my screen because there's going to be a lot of
tickled your curiosity about this?
Well, actually, before I share the screen, so when I was in Tunisia, I was trying to do a bit of like backtracking, family trees and all that stuff. And I got relatively far, although it's not, a lot of it wasn't like evidenced. It was more like, oh, this older person in the family said this.
Yeah.
Piecing it together kind of thing. Yeah. But I did find some paperwork that went back to, Bismillah, let me see. Essentially, the thing is, you can only go back down one line, really, instead of like all your lines, which is another thing we'll discuss shortly.
Why not? Oh, you can only go your father's way.
Yeah, like when you're trying to track stuff. So here we go. That's me, my dad, my granddad, great-granddad, great-great-granddad, great-great-great-granddad, and great-great-great-great-granddad. So that's as far back as I managed to go, I think. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is because of like, fortunately with Arabs, North Africans and stuff, especially in the past, they used to use like the kunyas a lot. So, and they do that even now in like a Tunisian ID card. I don't know about Algeria, but Tunisian ID card, it'll have my name like Mohamed ibn Murad ibn Qaddour. So I can trace it that way. So when I found like my granddad's one, I was like, oh, he's ibn so-and-so, ibn so-and-so. And then I kept going until I ran out of information, essentially. So I was doing that, and then I've always been interested in doing a DNA analysis just to see, because North Africa is quite a diverse place. We always had our theories about where we might have come from. It seems to be, based on this information that I've got now, that
Jewish.
There were
Jewish. I knew it.
We'll get into it, bro. Don't you worry. The thing is, before I get into it, what were your concerns about these kind of things?
No, I don't have a concern. I just thought...
Don't want people having your DNA.
No, there is an element of that. You know, I'm not convinced it's accurate. That's the main thing.
Well, I know that it's accurate now. I mean, DNA is pretty scientific. It's quite...
Yeah, but I'll tell you my exact thing is, like, I know someone who did one of these, and it's like, you're 5% German or something like that, yeah? It's like, Germany is, I don't know, 200 years old. Like, what's Germany? It's not an ethnicity, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, for me, what was interesting is the relatives, so the relative side of things, so finding, like, DNA links with people. So, because my wife is half English, so her brother did it. So I've got her brother's data as well. And actually, there's a whole story with that. We'll get into that later on. But just to fast forward, so many people he's related. Like, it came up with 9,000 matches on his English side predominantly. I'm looking at some of them now, and the closest match is a first/second cousin. So they've shared the same great grandparent. And then we did a bit of digging, and we realized, oh yeah, that makes sense. And we asked his mom, my mother-in-law, and then it just matched up. And similarly to me, but we'll get into that. Let me just share this, and we'll show you how it works.
You know, when you did your digging in Tunisia, you got the names of your, like, ancestors, but did you know, like, where they lived at all? Or was it always the same village? Or
no? So the village I live in Tunisia is everybody's related, because they say that it was just a few people, and then the family grew to the extent that when I grew up there, I just thought everybody was separate and strangers. Okay, that's so and so, and that's so and so. But then my parents used to tell me, my grandparents especially used to say, "Oh, all of this." There didn't used to be walls here. Everything used to be open. We all used to be one family. Everyone used to eat at everyone's house. So it just shows you the gradual sort of separation of people. And now, like, I walk there, and predominantly most people I won't know, because there's so many new, the younger generations kind of taken over and stuff. Yeah, walls have been built between properties, that kind of thing.
Sorry, bro, not to be rude, but tfaddal.
Oh, thank you. I'll take one of this. Thank you very much. Delicious. Where am I? Okay, so
sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, so you're saying that as far as you know, like, the people you discovered, they seem to all be from that same village. They didn't come from anywhere else originally that you know of, Yani?
Oh, so no, the ones I discovered on paper, I won't know for sure where they originate from. There's like my father's side, they would say, oh, we came from the south, like the south, and then came to Tunisia, to maybe Tunisia itself, or to the region where we are, which is a bit further north. My grandmother's side, she's from the mountains north anyway. I know that for a fact. But then beyond that, what's the story, right? Where does Islam come in there? Where does the Arab come in? Are we Arabs that came to North Africa? Are we indigenous North Africans that became Arabized? That was what was really fascinating. And I've got a bit of that story now. And then you got my mother's side. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then you got my mother's side, same thing. Is she indigenous? Does her line from an indigenous sort of North African line? Is there a bit of Andalusian, Spanish, whatever in there? Or are we like sub-Saharan, that kind of thing? And piecing together lots of different information through across databases and stuff, I've kind of got a good idea of what's happened, which is what's really fascinating. And obviously, like I said, the one key thing, I'll bring this up now because it will just show you how things work. So let's go the science behind. I'll have to switch through some different tabs as we go along. So can you see that?
Yes, sir.
So I'll read it out for listeners anyway. So how your DNA becomes a report. So I use 23andMe. There's another one, a popular one called Ancestry, which has got more users, so which would mean that it's got a larger database to cross-reference you to. But I do like the specificity of the information that 23andMe gives you, and I like the layout and a few other things. But yeah, so human DNA is about 99.5% identical from person to person. However, there are small differences that make each person unique. These differences are called variants. Your DNA was passed down from your parents and their parents and so on. Variants can be linked to certain health conditions, traits, and ancestry groups. Your saliva contains DNA from cells in your mouth. We send you saliva collection kit and instructions for providing your sample. As part of our methodology, our CLIA certified lab extracts DNA from cells and your saliva. Then the lab processes the DNA on a genotyping chip that reads hundreds of thousands of variants in your genome. Personalized reports based on well-established scientific and medical research. Oh God, this goes on for a while. But
wait, is
I
that
don't know
Ancestry group?
There's that as well.
Ancestry group.
So we'll get into that. There's something called haplogroups, which we'll get into. But it is, so this is where it gets a bit, when you go further back, it gets a bit contentious, because the way that they look at the human race is through an evolutionary model. Okay. So they will say that at a particular point of time, there was minimal, maybe I might be butchering this, but as far as I understand it, there's a particular, let's say there's a haplogroup of H. Okay, let's just say H haplogroup. That would date back to a particular individual that was like thousands and thousands of years ago, that a whole sort of demographic of people would have descended from.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they group people in that particular way. And you can track, apparently it's like a marker on the DNA where you can track this haplogroup across generations and generations.
Right.
So it will show me my haplogroup, and it will show me, okay, this is the journey of that haplogroup as far as we can tell from thousands of years back. This is where it originated from, and this is where it's ended up. And these are the people that also would have descended. But it could be like 10,000 years ago. Do you know what I mean? But the way they think, their origin of humans as they stand at the moment, Homo sapiens, is that they all kind of emerged from, I think, East Africa or Africa in general. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So it will track it from there. But like I said, that sort of stuff, it's so old that I take it personally with a pinch of salt. I can appreciate that there's markers. I can appreciate DNA is very, sophisticated in the sense that, yeah, you can tell it's information. It's like coded information, hard coded into the human body. So you can see that. But we'll get into it anyway. So if anyone wants to know more, just Google it, because I'm not going to butcher my explanation. This stuff is relatively familiar to me anyway, because I did biology at school. So it's kind of jogging my memory.
Did you do a little bit of forensics in your degree?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Not in my degree. And I didn't do it at criminology at university either. That was a completely separate thing, more about theory and stuff.
Right.
But let me share. So I'm going to have to, I can't switch tabs, can I? No. I'll have to just end up sharing my whole screen. So let's share my whole screen. Window. Boom. How we doing?
Yeah.
Cool. So this is my front page. So straight away. So the two things
you're showing it all, yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to show you everything.
You're letting it all unleash, yeah.
Because I find it so fascinating. I think it's really interesting for people. And I'll show you what other things I did as well as this. So I got this pack. It was on a sale during the new year. So I was like, okay, sweet, let me do this. And it came with health traits as well as ancestry. So it would show me certain health conditions that I might be at risk to based on my genetics, as well as my ancestry. So we'll go into ancestry first, and then we'll just break down what was sort of highlighted.
How much was that?
Oh, so usually it's about £80 just for the traits.
Yeah.
Just for like the ancestry. And then on top of that, if you want health, I think it's another, I don't know, I think it goes up to 120, 130. But from memory, it was like half price, I think, at the time. But yeah, here we go. So what you've got to remember is that all of these different companies will have their own databases of who they've cross-referenced against. So they'll go into all these countries all around the world and basically take DNA samples of so many different people.
Oh, really? So when they started, let's say they just started running, they got their first customer. They already had data then.
Yes, they would have had data already. And that leads me into a story I'll tell you afterwards about my brother-in-law, because I ended up going on Reddit trying to ask some questions, and it got a bit controversial, but we settled it at the end. Yeah, it was quite funny. So this is what the data I got. So essentially, surprise, surprise, 97.7% Western Asian and North African. So this kind of massive chunk here, right? And then you've got 0. So that breaks down. So the Asian side is like 0.27% Western Asian and North African. So that's like it's including here.
Oh,
Turkey, that kind of. But then you've
all
got
the way to Iran, basically.
Yeah. So actually, to break that down, North African itself is 89.2.
Yes.
With a likely match showing up in Morocco in these specific regions, which is interesting.
So does that mean your DNA is more influenced by your mum, or doesn't it not work like that?
So it could work like that with more info. So when my mum does it, it will be a bit more. So it will update as people update. So if your family members start doing it as well, it matches you guys together and it will refresh and it will keep updating the more people are on there.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, obviously, I can't do it for my dad, but it would have been really, really interesting. But I've kind of, through some other methods I'll show you a bit further on, I've narrowed down kind of the story. Now, interestingly, the thing that 23andMe does is it won't just tell you the country; it will try and tell you the region in the country as well, if it can.
Yeah.
I take that with a pinch of salt. I tell you why, because mainly the Morocco region, none of these regions do I come from. Okay? Yeah. Which is fine. I come from actually up here, so the surrounding, like Tanja area is actually where I'm from, Tanja, Marrakesh, but all of these kind of cropped up. That's fine. Casablanca is going to be a massive
Not far
area.
off, I suppose.
Not far off. Algeria. Now, I'm close to the border of Tunisia and Algeria, but the only place in Algeria that lit up was the capital. But you can imagine why, because the capital is going to have all sorts of people in there that would have done would have actually been tested, as opposed to the rest of the country, right? And then Tunisia, the areas were completely off, but obviously it didn't say there's possible matches in Tunisia. But what I've noticed it does as well is that it looks for relatives. So later on, we could have a look at the relatives that I say relatives. They're like the closest relative I've got is like a third cousin, something like that. But it's cross-referencing where they are in these countries and saying, oh, this is a region that you might be linked to. So it's interesting, but it didn't get that wrong. Didn't get any of that wrong.
Yes.
Then we've got the story of the Arabizations. So 7.8% Arab, Egyptian, and Levantine. Of that, 3.2% is the Arab Peninsula. So we've got, Saudi, Yemen, Oman, that kind of area. 3.2%. 2.8% Egyptian. 0.
What does it mean by like 2.8%? Is that like 2%, 2.8% likelihood that like you have a link to there?
So in the areas of the genes that would look at, or the area of the genetics that would, I don't know, that they're assessing for Ancestry, 2.8% of that was in line with someone who would be fully Egyptian. So does that mean that out of 1,000 of your relatives, like 28 of them maybe were linked, like had kids with or something, people from there maybe? Yeah, so Egypt. You could, if we go on Twitter, because this is whilst doing all of this, only because it's easier to find the picture. Anyone who follows me on Twitter might have seen it. It was it was a breakdown of like your potential ancestors that you could have up to like 10 generations. So it's this picture here. And I never really thought about this before. But if you can see that. So obviously you've got bearing in mind these numbers would be different if you had family that married cousins, or even further back you had like inbreeding, whatever, incest and all this stuff. We won't get into that. Or multiple wives, like somebody had multiple wives, etc. But let's just take it face value. Traditionally, you are marrying someone who isn't related to you in any way. You would have 2 parents, and then because of that you'd have 4 grandparents, and then you would have 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-great-grandparents, and then following that line up, it would be 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1,024, 2,048. So it keeps doubling every generation. And I've never really thought about it like that, but potentially, that's absolutely fascinating, isn't it?
Me neither, yeah. That's a lot.
So actually, some of the relatives I found, of these like 32 great-great-great-grandparents, we share one. Do you know what I mean? Of these 16 great-great-grandparents, we share one. And that's the closest I found, was somebody who shared one of these 16 people in Morocco.
Yeah, that's kind of, I never thought about this. So basically, if we assume, like, obviously it's not true, but if we assume that we started 10 great grandparents ago, then that means that we've got a mixture of DNA from over 4,000 people. It's all a cocktail of all that.
Potentially, yeah. And another thing is that you and your siblings won't exactly have the same amount from each person. It won't be exactly the same.
Yes.
So I could have inherited more Moroccan side than my sister, vice versa. So it's really, really interesting. But it's all there, and it doesn't mean that just because it's not coming up on the data, it doesn't exist. The data is just cross-referencing against others. And they will check, like, so I went down on a Reddit sort of wormhole with all of this stuff, and some people are like 100% Egyptian. Do you get me? Or their ancestors in all the data they've got just haven't left that area as far back as the data goes. But we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Well, some people get disappointed, but others, I think it's interesting. I think it really is. So then, where did we get up to? So we had Coptic Egyptians, 0.2%. So they are Orthodox Christian Egyptians. And then you've got broadly Arab, Egyptian, Levantine. So in here, you'll have like, a Shem.
Oh, yeah. It's like
area. That's the rest
Arab
of
world.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have... And I managed to break this down further with some other platforms, which we'll go into in a little bit. And then we've got 2% is sub-Saharan African. And included in that is West Africa, 1.2%, and then 0.8% Northeast Africa, which you can see here. So there's Ghana, Sierra Leone, Guinea, Gambia, Senegal, Sudanese, that kind of thing. And then there's this weird like trace ancestry here of 0.3% Eastern European. But the reason I did a bit more digging on that, the reason I suspect is because where you've got the 0.7% broadly West Asian, that would include Turkey.
Yeah.
Right. And then the borders of Turkey, you'll have Eastern Europe.
Caucasus.
Yeah. So you could have had someone out of all those hundreds, thousands of people that was fully, Eastern European.
Yeah.
But just got absolutely, amalgamated into
melted in the pot.
Yeah. Melted in the pot. This is for everyone. This is the human story for everyone. If you think about it, Adam and Eve are the first human beings, right? Obviously on the planet. And it would start, imagine it like a cone shape in the sense that, maybe not even a cone shape, but it would just steadily grow bigger and bigger and bigger until it becomes, if you think about yourself as an individual, it would then shrink back down to you. So looking at that picture in reverse, do you know what I mean? So imagine this 10th grandparent is the halfway point between, halfway point of human beings, hypothetically speaking. And so the 11th would be half less, and then half. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Until they got back down to just 2 people, which is Adam and Eve, hypothetically speaking.
Yeah. This is quite good. This is quite good, bro. It's actually better than the other versions I've seen. Like, There's nothing that's illogical, I suppose, about it. But
Well,
you know what's a
here's
bit
the
mad about yours
Go on.
is that, like, you're from Mediterranean. Mediterranean's like, there's so much mixing that's gone on, you know, around that sea for hundreds of years, thousands of years, but yet you have nothing European in you, which is just across the water. You know?
Well, that's what the question was. And one good thing is that these platforms let you download your raw data, so your raw DNA data, and input that into other platforms that have other databases to cross-reference. So that's what I did further on, and we'll get into that. And what that did is it just enriched the picture that I already have. But when I did this, so just to be transparent, when I put this in, it asked me, as far as I recall, where I was born. It asked me where my father was born, where my mother was born. Okay. And then you input that in. Didn't ask me anything about being, you know, Arab or anything about being sub-Saharan African or anything like that. There was no, and then I've read online that people have tested it by just putting completely wrong information and still getting the DNA that they actually thought they were going to get anyway.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So people have tried it and tested it.
So, you know, if you were like, let's say you're fully white English, but you were born in Tunis and you put, I was born in Tunis, like that shouldn't mess it up.
Yeah, it wouldn't mess it up. And that's the thing, like if you go on Reddit pages, some of the stories, bro, oh my God, they're phenomenal. Like when I say phenomenal, like positive and negative.
Like what?
Obviously there's some people that have like found long lost, I mean, loads of people find long lost relatives and family, and especially in, I don't want to say kuffar culture, but, you know, in a culture that's rife with infidelity, in a culture that's rife with, you know, putting kids up for adoption and all of this sort of stuff, people have found people again. People have found out that they're not who they thought they were. People, you know, one I found was that, well, quite a few, if you go on Reddit and sort by like the most popular, which I was going to prep a few stories for this episode, but I ran out of time. Like one person found out that all his life he thought he was Italian, and he's going on about being Italian. His family telling him he's Italian. Turns out like his dad isn't who he thought his dad was. And when he did the test, he came out as like 99% Jewish or something. Realized his mother had cheated on his dad and all this sort of stuff. And it all comes out, and families fall apart. And there's some really sinister ones as well, which I won't get into because it's kind of dark stuff. But you can imagine if you involve incest and all this other stuff into the mix, then people get exposed for stuff through DNA tests. And it's essentially like those old, you know, Jeremy Kyle kind of shows and that kind of stuff where they do DNA tests, right? Yeah. But now it's in the hands of the user, and the user can just do it for themselves. But yeah, so that's 23andMe's Ancestry. But we'll look,
you know,
at
like the Jeremy Kyle tests, when they do DNA tests and stuff, they're basically taking DNA from the parents and the child. That's enough, and then you can tell, right, who the
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Based on how much of the thing matches. Is that it?
Yeah. So you'll be Amin, you're 100% you. Yeah. Your genes, whatever they were originally, where they've come from, at the moment, what you have in you is 100% Amin. Yeah. And then your child will only have up to about 50% of you. And it's what part of that 100, let's just say what part of that 100 bits of data, 50 random quote unquote bits of data from your 100 will be in your child.
Yeah, yeah.
And 50 random bits of data from your wife will be in your child. And I say random, obviously, quotation marks, because nothing's random in the dunya, right?
Is it 50-50 though?
Essentially, yeah. Because where else is the rest going to come from?
No, couldn't it be 70-30 or something?
No, I don't think so.
Really?
I don't believe so. Yeah, I think it takes two to tango, in the sense that to make a child, right? So I think it requires 50-50. I think that's the way I remember it being taught at school. But if anyone wants to correct us, please do. But as far as I remember, so this is the health side of things, where it would basically check your DNA for any sort of risks that have been identified through, I don't know, popular studies. It isn't diagnosing you with anything, funnily enough, but it is just saying, okay, you've got this gene, and actually this has been linked to a high risk of whatever. Well, there's a few things here. So you've got, let's have, oh no, we can't do that one. Some of them are like premium, which I didn't get. So I think it's this one, health predisposition.
Always got to have an upsell.
Absolutely. So yeah, these are the three that came up for me.
Let me just ask you something, bro, before I forget. If you wanted to get those ones that are gated currently, they've got your DNA already, right? So you just like with one click could get access to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it could,
that's sick.
It could. It sometimes there's a bit of processing time, but other than that, it's all there. But the thing is, another thing. I mean, you can obviously. I don't know if they're going to do this, but you can click to destroy everything of yours.
Yeah.
So there's a. I went in the settings and it's like delete everything, like get rid of my data, destroy it, destroy my sample, whatever, and privacy laws and all that. So I'd like to think that will
destroy the human clone you've made with my DNA.
Absolutely, because I'm that important that they're going to clone me specifically.
Bro, there's another Achi tweet in one of those sack pod things in the Matrix.
Yeah, trust me. So so I had an increased risk of age-related macular degeneration, which is unsurprising.
What's that mean?
So that's for like losing vision as you get older.
Oh, okay.
So both my parents started wearing glasses. My mum wears glasses now when she needs to read, etc. My father, same. That's what happened to him as he got older. So that doesn't really surprise me. Celiac disease, slightly increased risk. I think that's to do with, as far as I remember, like digestion of certain things. Gluten. So is an autoimmune condition in which the consumption of gluten found in wheat, barley, and rye can result in damage of the small intestine. Yeah. It's an increased risk. I don't think I've got it. Not that I know. And then the last one was, this came up on some other platforms as well. The last one was a Alzheimer's disease risk. So increased risk of late onset Alzheimer's disease.
What's late onset mean?
So over the age of 65, risk of developing it.
Oh, so it won't happen, like unlikely to happen before that kind of thing.
Yeah. So many factors, including genetics, can influence a person's chance of developing the condition. This test includes the most common genetic variant associated with late onset Alzheimer's disease. And it says, Mohamed, you have 2 copies of the E4 variant we tested. People with this result have an increased risk of developing late onset Alzheimer's disease. Lifestyle, environment, and other factors can also affect your risk. And then obviously it'll go into it and it's trying not to worry you. And this is what you can do and blah, 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 blah. But there was
doing brain puzzles.
The thing is, like this stuff, the health stuff's interesting, but it's not something that you would. I mean, I can imagine people going crazy for some stuff like this. Like
bro, some of these billionaire podcasts I listen to, they go nuts for this stuff.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Peter Thiel trying to inject himself with young people's blood and all this stuff?
No,
you not heard of that? Okay. Yeah,
that sounds kind of scary.
Yeah.
No, look, at the end of the day, we're always at risk. We're always at risk of anything, really, without the information. But that does make you think. Like the first thing I thought about was like, okay, well, let me try and make the most of the memories that I've got with my family. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing, which we should always think about anyway. And this was just a reminder, if anything. One thing that was really interesting, if we go on to carrier status. So I don't know if you're aware, but we can carry certain things as well. We can carry genes for certain things that we could pass on. We might not have the condition ourselves, but we might have the gene that could pass it on to someone.
But how do they differentiate between you being just a carrier and then having the gene like we just saw in the previous page?
So I could get into it. There's a tutorial, but it might take a while.
They may not affect your health, but could affect the health of your kids.
Yeah. It's. I'm going back to like A-level biology here.
Maybe it's like a weaker thing.
Yeah, so it's basically there's dominant how do I might butcher this? Yeah, there's like, so we'll have certain genes as far as I remember, and like there's dominant, I think, is it chromosomes and recessive chromosomes? The dominant ones are the ones that are going to basically display themselves on you, and the recessive ones are the ones that you're probably going to carry. So for example, just to fast forward, my mother-in-law has blue eyes, right? And then when we cross-referenced my brother-in-law, he had a genetic marker that was for blue eyes. He was carrying it, but it wasn't obviously displaying in him. But hypothetically, there's a percentage chance that his children, one of his children, could be born with blue eyes.
I see.
you see what I mean? Because it's there in his DNA.
Yes.
It just wasn't displayed. So one that I came up with was it's quite an interesting one. It's a non-syndromic hearing loss and deafness. So essentially, DFNB1 is an inherited condition characterized by mild to profound hearing loss that is typically present from birth. People with GJB2 related DFNB1 most often have two variants or two copies of a variant in the GJB2 gene.
But you only have one, so you're just a carrier.
Absolutely, yeah. As soon as I said this to my wife, she goes, "Oh, this all makes sense now because you're deaf. You can't hear anything I say." And I've got really bad hearing. That's even been said by some hearing thing that I went and did. But I don't think it's anything to do with this. But interestingly, when I was doing the numbers, if I was to be with, like, if my wife was to be a carrier as well, I think the risk of my child being born with it is like 25%. So it's really just fascinating stuff, really, if you get into it. And you could pass this variant on to your children. So I've got 3 boys. One of them could be carrying it as well.
Yeah.
The thing is, this is how genetic conditions do get inherited. This is how things get passed on.
Yeah. You don't really think about this stuff.
No, but
I think it said at the bottom of the page for the thing, it said like something linked with ethnicity considerations.
Yeah, so some of them will be, this test is relevant for people of many ethnicities, including people of Ashkenazi, Jewish, East, Southeast Asian, European, and Ghanaian descent. It may also be relevant for people with Hispanic, Latino, Northern African. Right. They've just basically thrown the whole bag there.
Everyone, yeah. But some are only relevant to certain ethnicities. Yeah. Right?
And there's more information if you want to get into all of that. The final part of this health thing that I will look at is just physical traits, which I found really fascinating. So these are just like things to do with appearance and other interesting things.
Back hair, you know.
Yeah, so we'll go through it and I'll tell you true or false.
Okay.
So back hair. Mohamed, your genetics predict 59% chance you have little or no back hair. And that's correct. If it's TMI, I'll move on. But yeah, I don't have very much at all. So that was correct with that.
Some North Africans have like very little body hair in general, isn't it?
And some have a lot, bro. Some have loads.
I haven't seen the lot thing much, to be honest. But, yeah.
Oh, I have. Trust me. Have you been to the beach in Zaire, bro? I'm sure you've seen it, bro.
I have, but yeah.
All right, bald spot. So, Mohamed, your genetics predicts 92% chance you do not have a bald spot.
Come on, bro. Look at the hairline, bro.
I don't have it here, bro. I don't have one right at the moment. This one's a bit more of a mixed bag. 58% chance you do not have cheek dimples. I don't think I do. I don't. So that was right there. 88% chance your genetics that you don't have a cleft chin. 88% chance.
What's cleft chin?
It's like when you have like this really kind of like Mr. Incredible chin, you know, like this crimson chin thing going on.
Mr. Incredible. Let me search what that is.
Just search cleft chin. Maybe.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, I think I see what you mean.
Yeah. So
did you know what that means before you read this?
I tell you why, because my father-in-law has one, and then Ilyas has got it as well.
Right.
Suleiman, I don't think so, but Ilyas has definitely got it. So it'd be interesting to see when he grows up and maybe does this test, if it's on there as well. Dandruff.
Dandruff's genetic, yeah?
Apparently so. 62%. I won't argue with that. Earlobe type. Mohamed, your genetics predict 70% chance you have detached earlobes, which I do, funnily enough. And I was talking to my brother-in-law the other day and he doesn't. So I don't know if he hasn't done it on here. So he did his on Ancestry, so it didn't give him all this info. But so far, everything's been legit. Right. Early hair loss. So 81% chance you will not experience hair loss or thinning before age 40.
Take a beard. Yeah.
This one was wrong, I think. But this is like earwax.
Earwax type. There's types.
Yeah. 93% chance you have wet, sticky earwax versus 7% chance you have dry, flaky earwax.
So doesn't that mean 93% you're human?
Wow.
I never heard of dry, flaky earwax, bro.
Oh, well, that's me, bro. 7%, that's me.
Really?
That's yeah, bro.
Never heard of it.
So that's why I thought, oh, maybe 7%. And then here's eye color. So 75% chance dark brown eyes. Yeah.
So it's all right, isn't it?
All right.
No, the earwax type was completely wrong.
Was completely wrong.
Yeah.
Finger length ratio. This one was confusing. So 60% chance your ring finger is longer than your index.
Okay.
Oh, actually, they're like literally 1-to-1, bro.
That's weird. Yeah, I can't imagine that.
They're literally, actually, tiny bit. Okay, my index is tiny bit bigger on my right hand. My left hand is pretty much the same. Yeah, my right hand index is longer. My left hand, they're the same. So whatever. Freckles, 84% chance you have few, if any, freckles. Yeah, I ain't got none.
Bro, you're the type to have freckles.
No, not
like me. A few little ones.
You'd be the type, bro. You wouldn't even see my freckles.
Me?
Come on, bro.
Yeah, I could definitely have, but I'm just saying to you as well.
Hair photo bleaching. I don't know what that is. Oh, it changes color based on the sun. I didn't even know that was
got you. I thought everyone's hair did that.
Must be you. You're going to be 99%. This is like the personality test we did the other day.
It is, yeah.
The biology.
Yeah.
Okay, hair texture was a bit wrong. Well, actually, is it? I don't know. Straight hair, 62%.
Bro, you don't have straight hair?
No, I don't.
I've got, that picture, one of your pictures from back in the day with the afro, yeah?
Yeah.
I've got that burned in my head, and I remember that, yeah? So I know you don't have straight hair.
But I don't have curly hair either. I did when I was younger, but now it's kind of like somewhere.
But have you even grown it to find out?
I did recently. Oh my God. Oh, I don't even know if we recorded a podcast for like.
No, we did, but I wouldn't call that growing it.
Well, that was long for me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. What else we got? Okay, light or dark hair. So yeah, 67% chance of dark brown hair, 16% chance of black hair. Yeah, it's a mix whether I've got black hair or dark brown, because when you look at it really close. Yeah, anyway, but that's with everybody. No one's got like pure black hair, I don't think. Newborn hair, 59% chance that you were born with little or no hair at birth. I don't remember. Here we go. 99% chance you do not have red hair. They got that right. That was an easy one to guess.
Also, there is a ginger gene.
Oh, yeah,
it's like its own ginger gene, yeah.
Anyway, then you got skin fragmentation, stretch marks, toe length, unibrow, widow's peak. Yeah, all of that was pretty much good.
Wait. Can we look at this unibrow one?
Go on then.
55% chance that you have a little bit of a unibrow, and then 23% that you have a moderate or thick. Nah, they got that completely wrong. Your eyebrows look like they were done in a salon, bro.
Bro, 100% natural, bro. It doesn't say anything about the shape, though. But I might have a little bit. I can feel some hair here. But I'm sure everybody can.
Exactly. I mean, we all have, even, on your forehead, you would have tiny little, like, very light hairs, isn't it? So I think they got that fully wrong. And then we go up a bit. There was another one I wanted to look at.
Well, it's all chance, though, isn't it? So the do not have at all is 22%.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And
so this isn't like as, just go up to this row above that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Skin pigmentation. So it says 39% chance you have light beige. I don't know what that means. Light beige or moderately fair or olive skin. 16% olive skin. What is your skin?
This is it. So these descriptions are really subjective to me that I didn't even bother paying attention to them.
And also, like, wouldn't you get much darker if you lived in like Tunisia or something?
Yeah, I'm darker when the sun's out. I'm darker.
Bro, what's cool about Turkey is I actually change skin color depending on the season for once. Yani.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
that's it. You have to. Oh, I'm sure your wardrobe gets really interesting. You have to match your skin tones with your outfit. Right. So. I was going to go into like family and friends, but then I realized these are people's names and information. I don't really want to share that. But, essentially the closest person I found was I think, a third cousin. So we shared, like I said, one of those 16 great grandparents or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's a Moroccan fella, and he's in the Netherlands. So I connected with him, and then I shared his information on my like Moroccan family group chat, and my auntie replied, and she goes, "Oh, your gran has loads of family in the Netherlands." And I was like, "Ah, sweet, that's it then. Don't even need to ask."
Kidair labas.
Alhamdulillah. Oh, there's some other little weird and wonderful things
But
here.
you're not going to throw him a bit of Kidair labas?
Nah, it's not close enough.
It's too weird, yeah?
Yeah, because I went even further back, and it started linking me. I went further back, and he started linking me to like. So the further back it went, it gave me 300 distant relatives. Like the furthest was like, you know, your fifth cousin, something like that, and it was all over the world. Really, there was some from this Eastern Europe. Like I was matching with people even in the UK based on that 0.3 or 0.2% Eastern European that I had.
Right. Yeah.
And then there was some that a lot were matching like sub-Saharan African, but they were like now in Colombia and Brazil and all of this sort of stuff. But the DNA's matched. The DNA's there. Do you get me? And it doesn't. That's not, like some people might look at that and think, "Oh no, that's impossible. That doesn't make sense." But to me, it's completely viable when you actually look back at the numbers and how people spread.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Slave trade, traveling, blah blah blah.
But just the sheer numbers of people it would have taken for you to exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we have this thing, a bias maybe, that we just track the paternal side. We only track our dad and his dad's dad, not realizing, well, actually, what about your mum and your mum's mum and your mum's dad? And do you understand what I'm trying to say? And then the dad's on that end, and the mum. There
was a concept that I like just realized the other day, and it's like, you know, when you talk about the Sirah, the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and you're like, he was what's it called, from Banu Hashim. That's just the father's tribe,
100%,
right? But the mother could have had another tribe. So a lot of these people could have had two tribes, right? Obviously, their allegiance is more to their father's tribe, but it doesn't mean they don't have a link or a soft spot for that mother's tribe side, you know?
This is it.
I never thought about that before.
100%. No, definitely. Here we go. So here it says I have 21 third to fourth cousins, but that's just on this platform. You know, if I was to do it on a different platform, maybe the other platform that was more popular.
Oh, this is not the most popular, yeah?
It hasn't got the biggest. I think it's number 2. It hasn't got the biggest database of users.
Yeah. Does it tell you what monkey they think you came from?
Yeah, bro. There's this whole Neanderthal thing.
Yo, pick your monkey.
Bro, Neanderthals are probably like Juju mate Juju or something. But you inherited a small amount of DNA from your Neanderthal ancestors. Out of the 7,452 variants we tested, we found 191 variants. So like that's 5%. Bro, I was seeing on Reddit some people like 99%.
Just 99% monkey.
Ooga booga. Oh, bro. No, look, I don't get into this Neanderthal stuff because the theory.
You're 99% cabbage.
The theory is that like there was two like human species. One was a Neanderthal and the other was a Homo sapien, I believe. And then the Neanderthals died out and the Homo sapiens persisted, but they interbred a particular point in time. And then I'm not going to get into that. All right, I'm not going to get into that. All right, it's all monkey to me. But you know, I'll leave that for like Sapiens Institute or some other Islamic group to talk about, because I'm not gonna do any of that justice. But the haplogroup stuff was interesting. So you asked me earlier what are haplogroups? Yeah. So there's a maternal haplogroup, and there's maternal, and then there's paternal. So it was kind of like what we were saying. If you were to follow all the men back, it would be this. You know, you would link to a particular male, and if you follow all the women back in your lineage, then you would be linked to a particular woman. And maternal haplogroups only follow obviously women, and paternal only follow men. This is some of the stuff that they've come up with. So I linked to this H. So my maternal one is haplogroup H, and it goes to what I said earlier. This is how they so far determined where these groups have emerged from. So it starts with L, which is 180,000 years ago. and then that's in East Africa, and then it goes L3, which is still in Africa, and then N, which is in Middle East. R goes 57,000 years ago, a bit further up Turkey, and then H 18,000 years ago. Kind of went everywhere after that, but that doesn't really surprise me because it comes back to North Africa. Yeah, I don't know how they do it. It's all, you know.
Bro, what's that? I don't even know if this is legit. I think it's legit. Is it? Was it like Noah had 3 sons and they went to different parts of the world and kind of they're like the originators of certain macro ethnicities, if you like. Yeah,
possibly. I mean, we look at Ibrahim alayhi salam and we look at Ismail. Ismail is meant to be the sort of father of the Arabs in that regard.
Yes.
And then Isaac, Ishaq, etc., is meant to be part of the Jews, Christians, etc. So yeah, that wouldn't be. I wouldn't put that past. If it is, if you've read that somewhere and that's authentic, yeah, if that's a possibility. Because
I remember the name like Canaan comes up as. I remember Canaan being the one that went to like East Africa or something like that.
What is it? Look, so H here, origin and migrations of haplogroup H. The common ancestor of haplogroup H likely lived in the Middle East less than 18,000 years ago during the last Great Cold period of the Ice Age. Some of her descendants spread into Europe early on in the history of the haplogroup. Then the peak of cold blanketed much of the continent in thick glaciers and pushed human populations out of the north and into a handful of warmer refuges along the Mediterranean Sea. When the ice receded thousands of years later, members of H had sheltered in the Iberian Peninsula, began to expand north into Western Europe, etc., and it keeps going. And then, yeah, look, I wouldn't put it past me. And then, you know, it comes back into North Africa. My father's one. I also share this with Mary Antoinette. So if we were to go back in time, at least 18,000 years ago,
yeah,
with me and Mary Antoinette are distant relatives.
Boom.
Based on So
get some of that queen money, bro.
Queen money. I don't know how they know that. Is Mary Antoinette's DNA sitting somewhere?
Bro, she spat in the thing and did the test.
She did the test, bro.
Does DNA like last a long time?
I don't know. This is
like if you find someone's hair from 1,000 years ago.
I don't know. See, this is it. When maybe, yeah, I don't know. Likewise, my paternal side originates from Europe, but like I said, it goes back 10,000 years ago. Would I put that past me? I don't put it past me. Who's this? I can't even pronounce his name. Niall of the 9 Hostages. Meant to be some famous person.
Doesn't sound like a good guy.
No. Anyway, before we bore people with all this extra info, so what I did afterwards is I took the raw data and I went on Reddit and I was like, what can I do with this data? And then, you can go on all these different websites and get different stuff or more info. Okay. Oh, sweet, let me do that. So I downloaded the raw data and I went to this place called GEDmatch, who have more database stuff.
Jed, like Jed Duyani, grandfather.
Maybe. So here we go. So this is what it came up with here. Let's just scroll down to this section. I don't know if you can see that. I'll zoom in.
Yeah.
So here we go. So yeah, the GEDmatch is super, super confusing. They've got loads of different calculators on it, and you can tell just by the output that it's like, you know, old school internet. So it was, there was loads of, I can't break down the data, loads of different calculators come up with loads of different things. Some calculators are only associated to certain ethnicities. So like if I plugged it into the European thing, then it would only show me European areas. And then because of that, it will come up with some crazy stuff that I can't even verify. So this is the one that made most sense and aligned with everything else. So we had, number 1 was Tunisian. Thank God, because some places didn't even register Tunisia as existing. Number 2, Algeria. That makes sense. And number 3, Moroccan. And then you've got, do you know about the Mozabites?
No.
Okay, so they're, have you ever heard of Mzabi?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, so that's what that is. So it's a tribe of people down in southern Algeria. I was watching a documentary on them like 2 weeks ago on Netflix, funnily enough. So when this came up, it was quite interesting. Sahrawi, so I'm assuming, you know, another tribal group in the Sahara. Egyptian, we already know about. Egyptian Coptic, we already know about. And then you start getting some then the variety starts kicking in. But these are, I think the larger the number, the further back,
Yeah.
the less of it you're going to have. So, it goes Jordanian, Palestinian, Sephardic Jew. Sephardic Jew is actually very interesting. I looked into that. So, as far as I can recall, they were a Jewish people that existed in Andalusia, Islamic Spain, but then they were essentially persecuted and kicked out when the Christians took over at a certain period, and they migrated to North Africa. And there's links of them within the Mzabiyya as well. So they went. I was reading about
they
them.
also they're just Jews.
Yeah, but there's different Jewish groups as you go further down.
Okay, Sephardic Jew.
Yeah.
I thought Sephardic Jews like proper Jews. Ashkenazi Jews are like the fake ones, the Eastern European ones.
Wow, you make some big statements on Mind Heist.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say. I don't know. I don't know much about it. So all I know is that.
What I'm trying to say is that Sephardic Jew basically is Beni Israel, yeah. Okay. And Ashkenazi Jews are actually not related to Beni Israel, even though they're called Jews.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They come from like Eastern Europe, Russia, that kind of area.
Well, if that is the case, then that would make sense. But I don't know. Obviously, and then you got Italian, Sicilian, that makes sense. Syrian, that makes sense. Yemeni, that makes sense. Then you got the Ashkenazi Jews, you said.
How far is Sicily from Tunisia? Very close, right?
Yeah, it must be, yeah. I mean, I remember going past Sardinia. I think Sicily's close, if not next to it. Sicily, let's have a look. I spelled it wrong. I spelled Sicily wrong. Completely butchered it there. Yeah, look at that, bro. Look at that. Tunis is on the map.
Yeah. You could get there in a dinghy. As many do.
As many do. Yeah. Syrian, Yemeni, Ashkenazi Jew, Lebanese Christian, Samaritan Jew, Cypriot, Lebanese Muslim.
Samaritan Jew, not heard of that one.
Never had that.
That'll be a rabbit hole for another day.
Yeah. And then this one was like, if you were two populations, you would be Moroccan and Tunisian. That makes sense. And then here, if you were three populations, you would be Algerian, Egyptian, Zerbi. And then it keeps going. I can't make sense of this data. It's very confusing. And other ones that it spat out were even more confusing.
Yeah, this one's a bit dodgy. Because, when they start saying, that's what I was talking about at the beginning. When they start throwing you stuff like Jordanian and Palestinian, it's like, what is that? Right?
Yeah.
Because Jordanians are just mostly Palestinian, right?
Well, the number is there. Look, the number Jordanian and Palestinian are both for like 24 point something.
Yeah.
Like literally.
But what I mean is Jordanian itself, it's not a thing, right? Jordanians there's Palestinians and then there's the nomad Arab tribes. Yeah. That's what Jordanians are. So being Jordanian, you got to be one of the two. You can't be just Jordanian. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And like I think the database for this is a bit more static and older. And some of the stuff it was throwing out on other calculations were just wild. So the more...
It has Lebanese Muslim as an ethnicity.
Yeah, because there'll be Lebanese Christian, which is up here.
How do you tell that from DNA?
Because you would go... So like if you look at Egyptian...
When you convert to Islam, your DNA actually changes.
It's because of where you mix afterwards. So from that point onwards. Because what you'll find is like the Coptic community, there's a massive Coptic community where I live. Huge Coptic community.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. But I can just... something about their physical appearance, I can tell that they're Coptics. I don't know if I've just picked up on something just because I've been around them for so long. Because we went to school together, huge community, they've got multiple churches here, etc. But I don't know of them anywhere else. Even when I go to London, I haven't, like, people that aren't aware. So, they very much marry within within their own community. So, and if they're doing that here, then they're doing that in Egypt and they're doing that in Sudan.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So
I do get you. So that would narrow down their gene pool.
Yeah. Anyway, then I took my raw data and sent it to My Living DNA.
You're just throwing your data to everyone, bro.
I want everyone to have it. Just do what you want with it. Where are we? Here we go. This one just insulted me fully. Like, look at this. Just Tunisia did not pop up at all. So it came up with 45% Algeria.
Yeah.
But that's completely
that could, like, Tunisia, just let Tunisia join Algeria, innit? Like,
Just take over us, please. You do us
Pretty
all a
much.
favor.
So,
like I said, I'm here, like in Tunisia. Like I'm really close to the border anyway.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we were all from Algeria anyway.
That border's like 60 years old or whatever it is.
Right. Honestly, I'm like 25 minutes away from the border, if that. So yeah. Then we got northern Morocco. That's fine. Libya started to come up. All of these southern areas. I mean, we spoke about the southern regions, didn't we, earlier? The Mzabia. This is their territory. The Mozabites. And then you've got start coming up with East Africa.
Oh, they got
Sudan.
southern Morocco different to northern Morocco.
That's a political thing, I think. Oh no, it's not. It's not even included in the Sahara.
Let's not get into that. Yeah.
And then here, so you were asking earlier about Spain and stuff. So here we go, 4.4%. So we had 2.3 East Iberia and 2% West Iberia. So this is where they had a bit more information in relation to Andalus and that kind of thing going on, right? But yeah, if anything was going to be low, I expected that to be low.
It would make sense, like having some DNA from over there, though, right? With the just being in the Mediterranean, but then also like everyone that fled from there and this and that.
So this might be a good time to mention the story of my brother-in-law. So what spurred me to do this a while ago is that my brother-in-law mentioned that he did it and he sent me his data, but he'd done it like 4 years ago. And he lost access to his account, right? And he did it with Ancestry.com or DNA, whatever. Ancestry, the more popular website. Anyway, so his data essentially came back. So he's half Algerian, half English, right?
Yeah.
That's what he actually is. That's his dad is Algerian, his mother's English, i.e. my wife's parents. And then he came back with the majority was 30-something percent Portuguese, right? And then like 11% North African and like 18% UK and a bunch of other stuff. There was Italy in there and there was some other, countries in there and stuff. But the majority was Portugal. And North Africa was recognized, but the majority kept going back as Portugal. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, wow, that's amazing. That must be like, Muslim Spain and all that kind of stuff. Oh, that's so cool. And then like, yeah, cool, moved on. And then I got my results and I started kind of understanding this stuff better. And I went back to his results and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like his results didn't make sense to me. How could he have more Portuguese than North African when his dad is like Berber, Bailey from Algeria, and everybody I know in his family are Bailey, and there's no real question about that unless there's something that we just don't know about. So I posted it on Reddit, bro. I obviously hid his name and stuff and just posted the result on Reddit, and I was getting all sorts of people. Some people were accusing me of trolling. Some people were saying, there's something dodgy here. Your data looks like it's out of date. And then some people were like, oh, maybe you're not, maybe like who he thinks his dad isn't his dad. Right? And all this stuff. And then we started getting all nervous, like what the hell's going on? Oh my God. Like we were just getting really confused, right? And it was reminding me of those crazy stories that we saw, that we were seeing on Reddit. Anyway, so I kind of like pressured him. I was like, bro, like you need to try and log back in. Like see if you can log back in. Alhamdulillah, we managed to log back in today. Today we managed to log back in. Okay. And then it updated, refreshed it with all the new data, and it fixed itself essentially. And it was 45%. It was like, 45% North African. Portugal just didn't exist. It got wiped off the map. And then everything kind of came into place. But yeah, for them, bro, I've actually got his data up here on a tab. I'm not going to show it because I realized, it's his information and stuff. But he had like, second cousins, first cousins, from his mother's side predominantly. Because she's English. And then you could actually, it's had so much detail, like, oh, this is when, because he had all these links to America and all these family members from his mother's side that are in America now. They had DMs. He had DMs from people like, oh, apparently we're related. Can you see, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then we traced it back quickly and we realized, oh yeah. So his mother's grandmother or grandparent or granddad had, kids that eventually went to America and blah 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 and did all this. So it was really, really interesting. And then there was this one guy, Miskin, on the dad's side. So there's this guy, I think, where's he from? He's got like a Spanish name, but he lives in Germany, and he messaged my brother-in-law essentially asking like, I was wondering if you could help me. We've got a bit of a match in our DNA. I know that my granddad was Algerian, but I don't know anything about him. All I know is that he moved to France and died in France. I don't know anything about him, but is it possible that you recognize this name, etc., etc.? I really want to track my lineage and stuff. And it's just fascinating. Like those kind of stories will come out, right?
You tell him, oh yeah, I recognize that name. Yeah, he was Muslim. Yeah, definitely Muslim. You should read the Quran.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. The last thing I did was I shoved my data into this platform called Prometheus. This is literally endless. So all it's doing is cross-referencing all your genetics with all these medical studies they've done. So it's kind of like the medical thing that we saw earlier, but a lot less filtered. So it literally just throws the book at you of all the studies. I don't know what this, I don't know how accurate the studies are. If it's like it will show me some things.
So even if it's like a 1% chance, it shows it.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know the methodology behind the studies. I don't know how good they are. It tells you the date. It tells you how, it came up with some of the stuff that came up before, which is where they would have based it on. So like this is the Alzheimer's thing here. It came up with, and here another one, 1.9% risk of coronary heart disease, high risk of fungal spore-related issues in lungs. But these are all studies that they've done. So it's not conclusive, is it? Breast cancer, higher odds of alcoholic liver disease, more Alzheimer's stuff, unlikely to go bald, that came up again. But this might be the study that it was based on. Do you know what I mean? That came up on the 23andMe. And literally, you can keep pressing 2 times the data and it will just keep throwing stuff at you. It came up with the recessive deafness mutation. I was just looking at this out of pure. There's this study really interesting. Lack of empathy. You have an SMP in the oxytocin receptor, which may make you less empathetic than other people. we need to cross-reference that with the personality thing we did last time. This one basically goes on forever, absolutely forever. The things that did stick out to me was this lactose intolerance risk, which I do have, sorry. And there was like psoriasis as well, higher likelihood of having psoriasis, which I do have as well. But like you can read this and you're kind of going into, it's almost like, I'm going to stop sharing now, but it's almost like you're going into territory of like horoscopes, right? Because you could just start saying, oh yeah, I've got all of this stuff. But yeah, bro. So that's as far as I can think. That's everything of the D and the N and the A. But yeah, fascinating.
How do you feel?
I feel cool, bro. I feel like I'm gonna send them all of my family's DNA off to this stuff. I think it's really interesting, and I think when you read about history and stuff, you can appreciate it. I mean, one thing I would really like to do. One thing I wanted to achieve by talking about this and sharing this is actually trying to make people realize that do have like racism within them and racist tendencies, how interconnected we actually are. Like you see it, or you've seen, I'm sure you've seen the headlines before when this stuff became popular, of like people that thought they were 100% British or 100% American, whatever that means, doing these tests and then having like a percentage of like sub-Saharan African in them or this other stuff. If you were to look through my relatives list, you've got these like half American people, so it's coming up with like European ancestry and stuff. Then the other half is like sub-Saharan African, and that 2% sub-Saharan African is where we link, right? And you look at his picture, like I there was this guy that I was like a distant cousin with, and he was like a proper like goth guy. He's like got purple hair. He's got like this dog collar on and this eyeliner and all this stuff. I was like, crikey, like how people diverge, right? How communities diverge. But it made me think like, okay, like who was it that became Muslim first? Or was it multiple people became Muslim in a particular area and they, that's where I ended up. A brother on Instagram reached out to me because I shared some of this stuff on Instagram. And I think based on his DNA, I can't say for sure, but based on his, ethnicity that I'm aware of, I think he's South Asian, Pakistani, that kind of thing, right? So he's probably that's probably what he was expecting, right?
Yeah.
But then he had this like really prominent. Can I find it? Bear with me. Here he is. Boom, 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 boom. Here we go. 6.7% Scandinavian, just sitting there in his blood, right? And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. What was the story there? What happened at that point? And it was quite prominent. It's not like, oh, my one's like 0.2%.
Yeah, like, what's the story with that?
But it could be anything, man. And it's not beyond the realm of possibility whatsoever. Bro, you got to remember, back in the day, not only did he have slavery, I mean, not that I'm saying, oh, yeah, he had he had a great-granddad who was a Scandinavian slave. I'm not saying that. But that does play into it. There was concubinage. There was multiple spouses, multiple wives. There was trade routes in general. I've gone to the most extreme side first, obviously. But then you've got like the more common things, which are like, just trade routes in general, traveling in general. I mean, if you ever read about Ibn Battuta, I've got his book. I've never actually read through it, but I've just done a little bit of a flick through. He was marrying people, bro, and just leaving them in those places and going off on his travels. And think of how many people were like that. Like, he would marry someone, have a child in a particular area, and then just keep traveling.
Yeah.
Just go, continue. So that child now has Moroccan blood or whatever, and he's in the middle of Europe, and it just continues and continues.
Yes.
So think about that on a global scale. And yeah, it's just absolutely fascinating. And one of the things like I look forward to in line with this, like after we are judged and everything, and inshallah we will make it to Jannah. And I know that Jannah is going to have all sorts of delights that were going to distract us, but just part of the delights to me is having that knowledge of, oh, this is what happened. Oh, these are the family members. Oh, this is the human history. This is actually human history. I want to watch it from Adam to the finale, right? I want to see where we were right and where we were wrong.
Yeah.
Not monkeys. Do you know what I mean? I want to see, like, I listen to a bit of Joe Rogan here and there, and you hear all these
theories.
Theories now about like the pyramids and the Younger Dryas and the impact, the comet impact, and how there was all these ancient civilizations that might have been able to do all sorts, and now they can't. Some of that stuff pricks my ears because I'm thinking, Sulaiman alayhi salam could control the jinn. The jinn could build things in magnificent ways. So why wouldn't there be remnants of those buildings or that technology or whatever it is? Why wouldn't there? Or Adam and Eve, when Adam and Hawa were placed on Earth, they weren't placed on Earth like cavemen with no knowledge of anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly states in the Quran that he taught Adam the names of everything with that a level of knowledge. So when they were placed on Earth, they weren't like trying to figure out how to speak again or trying to figure out, what gravity was. How to, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, there was knowledge. We were placed on Earth with a level of knowledge from the get-go. So of course, we would have advanced far more rapidly than what the conventional or the current status quo of evolutionary biology states in terms of humans, right?
I mean,
I wouldn't put it past the possibility that we could have been. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it in the Quran in regarding Ad and Thamud. Their ability to build things was far greater than the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's people.
Yeah, I saw a random video clip. Random video clip. It was from some Christian thing.
He's still muted.
I'm muted.
Yeah, can't hear.
Okay, so what was I saying? Forgot everything now.
I can't remember what we got up to. I said something about buildings.
Yes. I saw this random video. Okay, it was like a Christian video, and it was like a guy speaking in the background, and then it was showing these mountains, and you think it's a mountain, but the shape is like the stump of a tree. Yeah. So it's like the size of a mountain, but it looks like a tree. And they're trying to say that there used to be trees as big as mountains. Right? And then there's some like Bible verse, which is very like vague, but they're trying to like say like, the earth used to be like this and stuff. So
yeah. Look, there's so much we don't know. We only know a drop of, if that. Even if we know what we think? What we know? Do we even think we know it? Like, is that even legit? Like, stuff changes all the time.
But you know what, bro? Like, we connect being civilized with and even being good, with technology, if you think about it, right? So, but it didn't have to be like that per se. Like imagine Adam alayhi salam, he's on earth and he's got the fitrah, he's got like the guidance from Allah, like in terms of morals, okay? And obviously ability to communicate and knowing the things that Allah taught him. But it could be possible that they didn't have technology like the wheel. You know, the wheel was maybe invented much later, or farming, or these things. So it doesn't like, is it true that technology equals like being civilized and having morals and stuff, you know?
I think it's more likely. I think with that knowledge, yes. And I think, you know, like if you look at Cain and Abel, for example, Qabil or Habil, and the trial that they had where it was to offer something to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of sacrifice. Well, that sacrifice, what was it? It would have required some sort of agriculture. It would have required some sort of technology to produce, what was it, the crops, or the to feed the animals, or to domesticate the sheep, or whatever it was that sacrifice was. Do you understand what I mean?
Just a knife.
And a knife? What you mean, like just catching a wild animal, for example?
Well, it could be, but also like shepherding is a lot older than farming, you know?
Yeah, possibly, but there's certain, you would require certain expertise to get to that point.
Versus you mean to be a shepherd?
Yeah, versus the narrative, which is the evolutionary model, which is we were cavemen and then we had to think about how to domesticate animals.
But you know, like the
thousands of years.
I just feel like the caveman model could be true without the assumption that these people like didn't have a language, and they didn't have knowledge of what's right and wrong and those kind of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but also the thing is with the if you match this up with the theories that are out there at the moment, which is, you know, the Graham Hancock theories and all these other theories, the cavemen stuff could be legit.
Okay,
but that isn't the beginning of the story. That could just be the middle. Okay. It could just be, you know, like look at Dur Qarnayn, for example, Surah Al-Kahf. Dur Qarnayn travels across the world. Now, Dur Qarnayn, as we understand him, technologically advanced society, commanding thousands of soldiers or whatever, or a whole army or a civilization across the east and west, etc. Right? That's how we understand him. But he comes across a people that can't even primitive people that actually look at them and you think, oh, they're cavemen. Right now, as they say it now, right now, we're talking on this webcam and doing all this podcasting. There's primitive people in the Amazon. It doesn't mean that just the ones that they found are the beginning of humans. It could just be that they haven't uncovered the ones that are more advanced. Or it could be that if they were humans, well, we know they weren't Adam and Eve because Adam and Eve had a bit more knowledge and a bit more this and that. So actually, what's going to happen is either an offshoot of them deteriorate, an offshoot of them not evolve, but what's the word I'm thinking of? But instead of like progressing,
go backwards.
Yeah, they lose their ability because, I don't know, knowledge dies, just like knowledge dies here. People with the knowledge dies, or calamities strike. The theory at the moment is like all these civilizations have built themselves up, and then this big calamity, whether it was a flood or whether it was a comet impact or something, has decimated the society that has to start up again. That could have happened many times over. And it's definitely, it's evidence that it happened, in terms of the Quran. Look at the Qawm Lut, for example, completely decimated. If there were some survivors, they would have had to start up again. Look at Pompeii, even recently, and then, more recently than that with the historic evidence. Look at Ad, Thamud. Look at societies that were seen as, look at ancient Egypt itself. Societies that were seen as grandiose and forward and whatever were destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a particular way, and the ancestors, if there were any survivors of that society, would have to start up again. But if me and you were the only two left in our wherever, how long would it take to build a phone? Do you understand what I mean? If our families, you know what I'm trying to say though, but this is it. If it was just my family, like the people that I know are the only ones left, and yourself and the people you know are the only ones left on earth, how long would it take to get back on track? It would take forever.
Bro, I wouldn't even begin.
But it would start up all over again.
Bro, like if I had to start from zero, 50 years from now, I'd be like, look, bro, I connected a battery and a light bulb. Like, how do you do it in science in school?
But then, and that's how myths start. That's how stories start. It's like, oh, back when I was young, we had this thing called the mobile phone. I could speak to people from across the planet. And then your kids and your grandkids are like, oh, he's full of crap. What is he talking about? There's no such thing, right?
Yeah.
That's how it happened. Like, this is it. So I don't. That isn't a foreign concept to me whatsoever. It's evidenced in the Quran that would happen, that societies would get decimated and destroyed. Some would get completely erased.
And it's not, I guess it's not like today. For example, if there was a huge flood in Turkey, la samahallah, right? It would still be limited to one city or whatever, right? And for example, Istanbul, there's 20 million people. So you would imagine a few million would not be killed by it. Yeah, at least. Okay.
Yeah,
but imagine on the flip side, you have a village or a town with just 1,000 people. It's much more possible that they would all be wiped out.
100%. And also this technology varies across towns, cultures, villages, kingdoms, etc., especially in the past. You can see that in terms of warfare, for example, like things that people, I mean, I was looking, like I told you last episode when I was watching about Mohamed al-Fatih, the cannon that he produced was a cannon that no one else had ever seen before, right? And like always happens. But what if that just backfired and he was decimated or whatever? That technology would have been lost. Think of like when the Mongols were invading. These are just more human-caused, decimations of society. Think of all the knowledge that was lost then. And then inherited knowledge. So think of society sharing knowledge with each other. I mean, they find things today, they still don't know what they were. There's like that artifact. What's that? Is it called the Archimedes something? That like ancient relic they found in
Archimedes'
Greece.
lever or something.
Something like that. It looks like that really like fantastic looking device that they found at the bottom of the ocean. But they have no idea what it was for sure. They think it's something to do with travel, something to do with sailing, etc., navigation, that kind of stuff. But they have no idea,
No, what I said about lever is a completely different thing. Okay, interesting. Archimedes. Yeah, bro.
Something like that. Archimedes screw, or maybe it's the wrong thing. I'm thinking of the wrong name. Navigation. I'm going to put navigation.
You know what this talk reminds me of? Age of Empires.
Yeah, you love that stuff, huh?
You know when you have to like upgrade your technology, like to get to unlock.
Here we go. It's the Antikythera mechanism.
Okay,
I think that's it. Antikythera mechanism. Yeah, I mean, looking at it, it just looks fancy. It looks fancy, bro. It's 2nd century BC. It's apparently the oldest known example of an analog computer used to predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance.
So it was a computer.
I think that's what they think it is, but that's knowledge, bro.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That just shows knowledge.
Yeah.
Could we make that now? We can't make that. I can't make that.
Yeah. Wow. What a way to feel useless.
But this is it. It's just to rationalize, because I think what's easy to happen for an individual in current societies as a Muslim, navigating yourself through, maybe a Western dominated world when it comes to academia and history and archaeology and all this stuff, is that you take that narrative and you try and put it up against what the Quran and Sunnah clearly establish, and then you feel a bit of friction and you're like, oh, how do I feel about this? What path do I take? Now, you could obviously take the route that we should be taking, which is to understand that what the Quran and Sunnah, the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Sunnah likewise. So you take that and run with it, regardless of what anybody says. But there's some people that struggle to do so because they are deep within that academia. They're deep within it. They're maybe studying at school or whatever. How do I navigate myself? Well, actually, it's to realize that what is considered fact or theory or whatever, and we go into this a lot, don't we? But what we consider as fact and theory from the academic world isn't always so. And actually, there's many reasons why things could be the way. And we've just gone through a couple of viable examples as to why the current narrative isn't the only narrative or the only possibility, right?
A good example of that is as well is jinn.
Yeah.
The amount of English non-Muslims who interact with jinn and they know like jinn exists fully, right? Or even they get involved with magic. but they're just not open about it. Maybe it's just not something widely accepted, even though on an individual basis, maybe a lot of people are fully aware of that whole world. That's a whole world, bro, that if you went on BBC News and mentioned it, they'll be like, this guy's loony, right? But a lot of individuals watching that, non-Muslims, they'll be like, yeah, I know about that, or I experienced that, or whatever. My friend was giving dawah to someone, and he said, you know, I got interested in Islam because I know I've got a jinn living with me. Yeah, he's like, he's always been living with me, and he kind of lives here. I can't get rid of him, stuff like that. And he's like, I found out that you guys like know about the stuff. You guys believe in stuff. You call it jinn and stuff. So, and there are many like that. Wallah, there are people who they do magic. They're involved in magic. They get you know, their life turned upside down by magic. And they're non-Muslims, and it's like a whole world. It's like a reality, like a full reality.
Yeah.
But it's not spoken about, you know.
100%. Do you know what? My theory about all this stuff has always been that in a world that knew God, whatever that deity may have been, like some, you know, Hindus may have believed in this particular thing, or Christians believed in the Trinity or whatever, but the world generally believed in a higher power, right? Then jinn and etc., shayateen, whatever, being more open and revealing themselves more was fine, because it didn't actually go against their mission. Their mission was to take people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So actually them being more open, more interacting more with humans, etc., was actually to their betterment, because then they could actually detract people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in an atheistic world, if a lot of the world isn't believing in any higher power, then actually a jinn interacting with a human would only be counterintuitive to their aims.
Because it shows,
because then it shows there's something beyond. There's an unseen world. So that was my thing. I think like when you look at history, everybody spoke about demons and spirits and jinn. There isn't a society that didn't, because everybody believed in higher powers. So it wasn't counterintuitive. But then something happened when this Enlightenment period came out. Bro, I'm 100% convinced Shaitan himself probably told his minions, whoa, simmer down now. they're on something that let's help them with this science thing. Yeah, because if we reveal ourselves and we interact with the people that disbelieve in the unseen world, then we're just going to push them towards. Because if atheist knows that Satan exists, then he knows that Allah exists. Yeah. Do you understand? If an atheist knows that devils and jinn exist, then straight away the unseen world, I need to know more about the unseen world. Yes. Who do I go to for the unseen world? Well, I have to go to the religion, because that's the only thing that speaks about it. Science doesn't touch on it. So I think that's it, bro. And you know, you walk around these streets in the metropolis of Dubai or the metropolis of London or wherever, you're not going to feel the presence of the unseen world, because it's such a manufactured, atheistic, whatever world, secular world that we walk through. But you go out to the desert where everybody in that area believes in the unseen world, well, then you're going to probably encounter some unseen things, right? If you think of like, especially like, let's say 200-300 years ago or more, go to some village in India or wherever, non-Muslim. Bro, the jinns run rings around these people. They would run, because what do the shayateen of the jinn, yani, what do they tend to do? They ask people to sacrifice stuff for them and blah blah blah, and become a kind of a god, right? A kind of you sacrifice to me, you follow me, you do this to me, right? You venerate me. So they often do that. That's well known, right? So who's to say that these gods that whoever different people ended up worshipping are not just jinn playing games? Yeah, 100%. There's always there's two paths they can take when it comes to shirk, right? It's either they're worshipping jinn themselves, demons themselves, or they're worshipping ancestors that they've venerated to an extent that have become these deities, right? Yes. These are the two paths. It's either one or the other in my eyes. Yeah.
And the only like codified one we know is like Satanism, but there's more to that. Like who's these like different Hindu gods? I don't know the names, right? But Krishna and this and that. Is that Hindu?
I believe so.
So imagine Krishna's like a jinn, like it was a jinn, like, you know.
It could have been, but the thing is, it's viable. It could have been even prophets themselves. I mean, look what they're doing to Isa alayhi salam.
Yeah, it could have been a person, but also maybe a jinn. Yeah,
there's some, I don't want to say evidence, but people speculate that Buddha was a prophet.
Yeah,
sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, there's this fascinating one that I looked at once because I went on a bit of a rabbit hole of looking for monotheistic prophets of the past or people of the past. There's one, I think I mentioned it before, about the pharaoh. This pharaoh comes out of nowhere in Egyptian history, tries to basically make all the people worship one god. There's a little documentary about it on YouTube that I saw. Fascinating stuff. So essentially, I don't know, I can't remember his name, but it's easy. If you Google it, you'll find it. Essentially, as far as I remember, he crops up, takes rule, he's leading, basically raises all the shirk, essentially, one god. This one god has a name. History obviously is probably going to change a little bit because it says something to do with the sun or whatever, but essentially it was monotheism. Okay, this is the one god, this is how whoever has to worship, and he had a link to that one god in a particular way, probably as a prophet, maybe. Allah knows best. As we know, the prophets were sent to everyone, every people. I think they basically conspired to kill him. As soon as they got rid of him, everything went back to how it was almost immediately. And his memory, even those around him, I think, as far as I recall, just wanted to erase him from history. Like he wasn't even like recognized in like the, whatever records they have. But that isn't far-fetched to me, because that is what we are told happened to lots of prophets. And ancient Egypt would have had their prophets beyond Moses.
You can imagine that's a common story with all these thousands of prophets that were sent.
Yeah. Some converted nations, some didn't convert a single person. Some were leaders and some were shepherds. Some were, some were shepherds that became leaders and whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's going to be so much that we don't know. And like we always say, Adam and Eve were the first on the planet. They were Muslims. They believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything apart from Islam is a deviation of some sort that came along the way. Whether it's Zoroastrianism or current day Judaism or current day Christianity or current day Hinduism, or if you trace it back, if you had a time machine and you could literally watch that journey, there was a breakaway point at some point.
Yeah.
At some point, everyone was on Islam and they broke. They broke away, whether it was through innovation, whether it was through asking the jinn, whether it was through complete ignorance. So you can imagine someone was born ignorant of Islam or became ignorant of Islam, and their kids were ignorant, and then they came up with their own thing out of the blue.
Yeah.
There's so many different reasons, but when you know that Islam is that golden thread, then actually...
The mad thing is you have like some documented examples of the Council of Nicaea, right, where they codified the idea of the Trinity, which didn't exist before. Yeah.
Oh, of course. But there's so many different ones. Oh, here he is. His name is Akhenaten. Akhenaten is noted as a pharaoh. Akhenaten is noted for abandoning Egypt's traditional polytheism and introducing Atonism, or worship centered around Aten. So Aten was the name of this one deity that he basically wanted everyone to worship.
Interesting.
Funny, isn't it? Allah knows best, but
I like this thinking about, when you start to think about technology, not as, a lot of the time we think of technology as like electronics.
Yeah.
But there's a whole thousands of years when there was no electronics, right?
100%.
It's like when you look at the plow as technology, or the wheel as technology, then you start to realize the crazy shifts that mankind has gone through over the long history.
Yeah.
Like, forget AI, bro. Like, there was a time where there was no farming, then there was farming. There was a time where there was no wheel, then there was just mad.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
There was a time where there were no boats, probably. I mean, not probably, but of course.
Yeah, 100%. But then things come and go. Like things disappear, and then they get recreated in a different fashion.
Yeah.
It's like similar things will crop up again that they might have had.
There's probably a patchwork of, like we were saying, if you're just a 1,000 person town, that can get lost quite easily. So you can have a patchwork of different levels of technology, even in one area, Yani, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a section here called Akhenaten and monotheism in Abrahamic religions, which I haven't read this at all. I've only seen the video, but it says
Is this
here
on Wikipedia?
Yeah. So just briefly, it says the idea that Akhenaten was the pioneer of a monotheistic religion that later became Judaism has been considered by various scholars. One of the first to mention this was Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, in his book Moses and Monotheism. Basing his arguments on his belief that the Exodus story was historical, Freud argued that Moses had been an Atenist priest who was forced to leave Egypt with his followers after Akhenaten's death. It keeps going. See, now that is crazy, because I just thought of that when I read about the monotheism, but now they're thinking, their scholars are out there, including Sigmund Freud, who are thinking, this could be, but what is Judaism? Well, originally it was Islam in that sense. So it's that monotheism. And when we're saying, here's a monotheist who is preaching the same thing, it's Islam again. It's just Islam.
And they're saying it's linked to Musa somehow.
Yeah, so he's saying, Musa actually wasn't a Jew. They just don't know what the name is. The name that we have today of Islam was the name that it was back then. It was about submitting yourself to God. So fascinating stuff. And you can go on a deep rabbit hole. You know, there's hints of or remnants of monotheism in like Native American history, around the world. So when people think that monotheism, they say it now, bro. Historians, archaeologists, etc., they say that monotheism is the innovation. Everything used to be like shirk. Polytheism was the norm. Yeah. They say that all humans developed polytheism first. Nah, it's that you just haven't gone far back enough. And it's what we were saying again. You see all these cavemen and stuff, thinking that's number one, that's the first. No, you just haven't gone far back enough. Because you'll find Adam and Eve and you'll find Islam if you were to truly go far back.
Yes.
Fascinating stuff. When are you going to spit in a tube?
No time soon, bro.
Bro, yours is probably so interesting as well.
Yeah, you did get me curious.
Do it, bro. Do it. We could be cousins. I'm so Algerian.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. Yeah, I could be, you know how you got like all North African and stuff? I could be one of those ones that's got like the Portuguese or whatever. You never know, Yani, I don't know. Turkish or you never know.
What are your apprehensions, if you have any?
I don't have any apprehension.
Sure. I feel like you would have been one of those like privacy nuts. Like, nah, I don't want them having my DNA.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah, of course I don't want them having it. Of course I don't.
What do you think they're going to do with it?
You know what? It's like rule number one is don't share more than you need to share when it comes to DNA, information about yourself. Right? I'm saying that as someone have this podcast, which I've broken many red lines over the episodes, but I do believe that, you know, the more, it must be one of the Sun Tzu's rules, bro. Yeah. The more they've got, the more they got against you, you know?
Who are they? You think there's a cabal of just DNA testers?
No, when I say they, I mean anyone other than you and people you really trust.
Okay, yeah, I get you.
So that's just true with information and everything. You know, apparently, my friend told me this, and he's like into history, so this is legit, He said every president, the FBI, whenever there was a new president, or probably before they even became a US president, they would build up a file, right?
Yeah.
Everything the guy's up to. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So if they ever need to blackmail them, they've got it all here. Yeah.
That's what Jeffrey Epstein's island's about, bro. They send all the big powerful people there, and then they got something against them when they need to.
Yes. And they did that with JFK. He had an affair or something.
Everybody. They do it with everyone.
Yeah. So
but
there you go. I'm not that. No, I'm not that. I'm just saying that it's a tactic. I mean, look at Andrew Tate, right?
Yeah, of course.
The thing with Andrew Tate, like, we don't know what the reality is, but it's just textbook. It's textbook.
Yeah. 100%. The thing is, what you could do, because you can purchase the kit and do it all under a false identity. You don't have to give them any real info. That's what a lot of people have done on Reddit.
Yeah.
So there would be no way of knowing that was you. Do you know what I mean? Unless you want to give them all your info and you're interested. I mean, if you linked with someone and you wanted to match with them relative-wise, then you'd probably tell that person, actually, my real name is this, and this is where I'm from.
By the way, though, you know, I do believe this, by the way, yeah? Not DNA, but there is, I believe, how do you say it? A backdoor database, yeah?
Yep.
That holds, for example, all my email addresses, link those email addresses together, link them to my phone numbers, link them to my name, to my government IDs. It's all linked in a database that is accessed by certain governments, and that those governments are given this information by certain big corporations, which they force them to. Yeah. And so I do believe that's true, right? And so why couldn't they just add my DNA along with that?
Yeah. It's like your credit score.
Well, there we go. I mean,
a credit score is an example. I remember first looking into that, and I was like, "How do they know all of this? Oh, they got all my bank accounts, all these purchases, all of this and that." Yeah, I get it. And the thing is, yeah, it's all easy. I suppose I appreciate it. It's all well and good until you become the enemy that they're after, right?
Or not even that. Like, imagine all this information we have is saved somewhere. And then all of a sudden we're living in that whole Chinese social credit score system.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want that, would you? You wouldn't want all that out there.
Yeah. But you're out there.
But sometimes you just gotta know where you're from, bro.
You don't know where you're from, bro. You might think you know, but you don't know. You need to spit in a bottle, bro.
That's
spit in a
saying.
bottle.
Yeah.
And you're gonna find out. You're gonna find out.
Maybe one day I'll be less volatile. I mean, I'll be more volatile and do something spontaneous for once. Let's see.
I don't know. I feel bad for my kids, bro. They're going to have like a mixed bag of DNA, all sorts. Love it.
Your wife did it or no?
No, but she'll probably do it eventually. But it's, you know, it won't differ too greatly from her brothers.
Yeah, but then you can kind of take yours and hers and then look at your kids could have like...
Yeah. I don't think my son can produce enough spit to put it in the bowl. It's quite a bit.
Really?
Yeah, bro. It took me a while. It took me like 5-10 minutes. My mouth was going dry. TMI, but...
Well, you're a flaky earwax guy, so it makes sense.
I needed it. I needed to spend that money to find that out. A lot of the stuff it tells you is like, yeah, I know that. Yeah, that's true. Because I knew already.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it's fascinating. And I think for some people... finding relatives, like I know I've got family members that have done the other one, Ancestry. I think my half sister did, and I think my auntie did. So straight away, as soon as I do it, it will ping me saying,
people do that stuff in Tunisians.
A lot of them are people that. So a lot of the links were people that are Tunisian, Moroccan, but live in Europe and stuff.
In the civilized world.
Yes, the scientific civilized world. Spit in a test tube. Send it off to the lab. Darling, I had my DNA analyzed. I'm 0.3% Polish. Oh, man.
If they find out they're 0.1% African, then exiled.
Yeah, we need to get a genealogist on the show, bro. And then he can fix all my butchering. Everything that I mashed up on. Especially
it is actually really interesting.
Dominant genes, recessive genes, all that stuff. God. Going to get refuted. We're going to get flagged on YouTube for misinformation. Yeah. Let's sign off. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.